Hello, Melton Guy here, and taking another look. I'm here to guide you along a ride that we've all been taking for some time now, and it's all about, and they're all out there, conceptions, misconceptions, perceptions, and it has clouded the mind of many people that don't know which way to go, which way to turn, politically speaking, right now, I'm thinking. You've heard the term perception is reality, and that's simply not the case. Perception may be your reality in your mind, but perception is only a perception. Reality is reality. And if we've never done it anywhere at any time in our history, this is the time we need to do that. We need to do that chore, separating what perception is versus what reality is. It makes a difference. And God, I hope that I can get across what I'm trying to say. We all have perceptions. We all create in our mind how we feel about things, and usually because of something we've experienced, something that happened in our family, something that happened at school or at work. But we create perceptions, create ideas, even philosophies. I'm going to tell you a few of mine and how they came about. I'm not against anyone having a gun for hunting or a gun for protection in their home. I'm very much against someone having an AK-47 to go deer hunting, or an AK-47 or some kind of super high-powered rifle to protect themselves at home. That simply is not reasonable. And yet, to so many, it is very reasonable. My idea about guns and gun control stems from some experiences in my life. On 2 different occasions, I baptized a young man, a child. In the service, I was in charge. I was the minister. I did the baptizing. A very precious moment, as it always was, anytime I had the opportunity and was given that privilege of baptizing some parents' child. And it was always a special service, in my eyes at least, and I think in most. But on all those 2 occasions, and I've baptized more than these 2 occasions, but I'm making a point, in that on these 2 occasions, on another date later on, I stood in the same pulpit with the respective individuals, church, and I held another service. It was a funeral. One of my least favorite things to do, especially when it involved a child. This was a funeral that didn't need to be. It all happened because someone was very careless with a gun that did not need to be in a home. And the child died at an early age because of someone's belief that you should have any and as many of whatever kind of gun if you want it in your home. Now, there are people out there, and I probably can find people who would disagree with this, but there are people out there who have no business getting a gun permit. I'm sorry for them in a sense that they are not capable of respecting or knowing what power they have with a gun in their home or in their hand. But I came to my belief because of events like this that hurt me, that has stayed with me all of my life. And sometimes I close my eyes and I see the face of this particular young man as I baptize them and as I bury them. Another issue, controversial out there for many, is the issue of abortion. I've never been for abortion on demand. I don't know that I know anybody that ever was. I'm sure there probably are, but I didn't know anyone personally. I knew plenty of pro-choice, but I never knew of anybody that thought abortion on demand was the way to go. But our first child, her name was Terry, Theresa May. And she was born with what we call then open spine. Today they call it spina bifida. It was probably called that back then, but the doctor referred to it as open spine. And I can remember viewing this child from the window peering into the nursery. After we had so excitedly waited for so many months for our first child, and we loved it from the first time we felt it kick in my wife's womb. But as I peered at Terry in that window, I couldn't help but think, I wonder if she's hurting. I wonder how much pain she might be in. And she died after 5 days. But later on, my wife and I discussed it. I didn't dictate. She didn't dictate. We just discussed it. And we both agreed that had we known what was going to happen, that in the first couple of 3 months of my wife's pregnancy with Terry, we certainly would have agreed to an abortion. That's how my view was shaped. Because I'm sure that I'm not the only father, and she wasn't the only mother that ever peered through a child in that window and wondered, is my baby hurting? And I know there's reasons, many reasons for abortion. But my experience tells me that this is a couple's decision, and it's basically the woman's decision. It's her body. And for any man who has no idea what giving birth is all about, except for the fact that he's got a pocket full of cigars or he's going ready to celebrate, he really doesn't know what's happening because he's a man. And there are things happening in a man's body that a woman cannot even consider because she knows nothing about it. But at the same time, the same thing is true looking at it the other way, and especially in childbirth. So that's why today I am pro-choice. And that's one of the biggest reasons that I am pro-choice today. Another controversial issue that came about as of late was the idea about should I be vaccinated or should I not be vaccinated. If you listen to a president who was around at the time that COVID came about, at first you would not have been vaccinated because you loved him so much and you thought he was so right that you would not be vaccinated. And then later when he got COVID and then decided to get when he got over that he did get vaccinated. By that time, you'd already made your mind up because you didn't want to be wrong, so you didn't get vaccinated. We were vaccinated to begin with. We were one of the first, and we've had all the shots, the vaccinations that came about since then, the boosters, whatever you want to call them. And we're that way because we just thought it was the right thing to do. But if we did not feel that way, we might have had our mind changed as we watched our son Matt die in an emergency room. The doctors telling us that if we could just get into ICU and be intubated, he could live. Matt had a condition that every 2 to 3 years, that the poison in his body because of his accident and the subsequent surgeries. And we don't know all. But he had to be intubated. And then for 2 or 3 years, he'd be all right. He was quadriplegic. He had a traumatic brain injury. And some people might say, well, he might be better off. Well, I say to hell with you. We aren't better off. I wanted my baby. I don't care what anyone thinks about what we're giving up. We never felt like we were giving up anything. And I look at a president, and I look at some congressmen and women, and I look at family. The cowards, the selfish individuals who for some reason said, I'm not going to take this shot. And in my mind, all of them helped us put our son in a grave. Now, these are very, very real realizations that did not create me. On the contrary, all of these, each as important as the other, tore down walls of ignorance and opened a pair of previously blinded eyes. Now, why do I say blinded instead of blind? Because it seemed before I was instructed to see what I saw. I remember a passage of scripture from 1 Corinthians 13:11. It said, when I was a child, I spoke as a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I gave up childish ways. Now this verse transcends physical and becomes spiritual as well. And it becomes social, communal, because this growing up, this matter of maturing, is not only in the body and in the mind, but also in an understanding of ourselves and our relationship with our neighbors, with other people. Because how mature you are in that sense, spiritually, physically, emotionally, etc., dictates your politics, dictates your religion, and dictates your attitudes. A new definition of hatred, given the many social problems confronting us all, and it goes like this. The hatred is the absence in a society of even a semblance of attempts at empathy. Absence in a society of any semblance of attempts at empathy. But as I quoted a verse, I did so to say this. Whatever the equation you use to reach how you are and who you are, according to you and your church and your faith, you cannot leave Jesus out of your equation. But if you're going to put up signs all over the place saying, "Thank you, Jesus," then you need to know who Jesus is. Really, who Jesus is. I refer you to Matthew 25, 31 through 46, where Jesus said, when he was separating the sheep from the goats, he said, "I was hungry, you fed me. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was sick, and you came and visited me. When I was in prison, you came unto me," etc. And then the disciples, or one of the disciples said, "When were you hungry and fed you? When were you thirsty and we gave you drink and visited you when you were sick and in prison?" And Jesus' words is probably one of the most dramatic lines that you can find in that Bible that you hold so precious. "Inasmuch as you have done it unto one of the least of these, my brethren," anybody out there, whatever you've done to them, you've done it, or have not done it unto me. To put it bluntly, whatever you've done or have not done to any person or group that I've mentioned here today, you have or have not done unto Jesus. So we really know him, or we simply kill him. And I'll leave you with your thoughts. Plug my book, The Offspring of Ignorance. It's on Amazon now. I hope you will consider buying it. Please give me a like, or not like, thumbs up or thumbs down. Let me again recommend Tennessee Brando and Owen Morgan to you on YouTube. I think that you will enjoy them. You have to look beyond some things, but if you'll just listen to what they say. And if you will, subscribe to their podcast. And while you're at it, subscribe to mine. God bless you all, and I'll see you next time.